Hi everybody, I just wanted to put a little video together about how we teach phonics here at Lancaster Lane. We follow the Red Rose Letters and Sounds scheme. It's a Lancashire scheme and this begins in preschool and goes all the way through to year 2. So in preschool, our journey begins with phase 1. Phase 1 includes 7 aspects. So they are environmental sounds, where the children will tune in and listen to the sounds, remembering the sounds and talking about the sounds. Then they'll move on to musical instruments, body percussion, rhythm and rhyme, alliteration, voice sounds. These are all vitally important to improve your child's listening skills, which is one of the prime areas in early years, and it is vital for across the board in all areas of their learning to home in on those listening skills. So we've covered aspect 6. Aspect 7 is oral blending and segmenting. Oral blending and segmenting is something that the children need to know to be able to read. If we give them the knowledge of these new phonemes that we're going to introduce into reception, they need to know what to do with them. So we can start off by orally blending words that we use every day. You might orally blend, let's go to the park, and the child will say back to you, park, or it is time for your bath, and they will say bath, okay? So it's about them homing in and listening for those sounds and pushing them together to blend to be able to hear the word, okay? Or they might want to segment some words, which is where they break the word up. So they might say, I'm going to put my coat on, okay? So aspect 7 is continued really through phase 2, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Phase 2 is started in reception. In phase 2, there are roughly 22 sounds. These include 19 phonemes and 3 digraphs. Now with these sounds, the children are expected to start by writing simple CVC words. CVC words are consonant, vowel, consonant words. So words that are made of one consonant, one vowel and one consonant. And they will start, that's their journey, that's where we want them to start, is to write those simple consonant words. Then we'll move on to captions using the phase 2 sounds. Okay, so let's have a look at how we teach phonics in reception. So we will start by hearing the sound that the letter makes, okay, and we call this a phoneme. So we want to hear the sound, and the sound the letter S makes is S. S. We will get the child to then say the letter S, which is, or the sound for the letter S, S. S. Now we want to make sure that the child is articulating this sound correctly, because we don't want them to swar the words. When we talk about swarring the words, I know back in my day when I was growing up, you might have said t or m. We need to, and that doesn't really help when they come to blend a word together. So if you wanted to say, let me think of a word, bat, and you try using the b-a-t, it doesn't really help them to hear those sounds clearly to be able to blend them together. But if we hear the clear articulation of t, it will help a lot more. Let's just listen. B-a-t, bat. Can you see? So it's really important that we don't teach our children to swar the letters, the sounds that the letters make. Okay, so then we'll move on to writing these graphemes. To be able to write the Red Rose scheme has patterns for every letter of the alphabet. The children are taught these, so you might hear them say, when they're writing the letter S, you might hear them say slip down the slide, just to help them to remember to form those letters correctly. let's have a look at how we read. So in class, we put sound buttons underneath our words. So here we have sound buttons under the word s, at. We will move our finger across the sound buttons and then we'll come back to the beginning to smooth read the word. So here we have s, at, sat. Again, at. It's important that you make sure your child smooth reads the word, otherwise they're just saying lots and lots of phonemes and they're not blending those phonemes together to make the word. Okay, let's have a look at how we write. So we use our phonic fingers. We encourage the children to hold a finger up for each sound that they can hear in a word. Okay, so here, if we want them to write the word sat, we're going to hold 3 fingers and count them out. S, at, sat. Then we'll use a phoneme frame to write those graphemes down in the phoneme frame. Okay, so for each box we have a phoneme. Okay, so at the beginning of reception we hand out books with no words in. This is just to help you to create conversations around the books, talk about the pictures, what do you think might happen, why do you think they're doing this in the picture, what do you think is going to happen next. It's all about that vocabulary and developing the comprehension of around the story. Okay, and this is still encouraged even when you do get books with words in, because I think if they've got a good understanding of what's happening in the picture, it will really help them to understand what they're reading as well. Okay, so let's have a look. The books don't have sound buttons, unfortunately, but you might want to encourage your child to point to the sounds and press the buttons, or you might want to get a lollipop stick to point to the sounds. Okay, sip, sip. It's important, again, like I say, to smooth read the word. Okay, and then here we have tip, tip, and, tip, and sip, sip, tip, and sip. Now, before you've read your book, it is a good idea to maybe write down on a piece of paper, or if you have flashcards, find the flashcards for the book that you're reading, of the different sounds that are going to be in the book. Just flash them to make sure that your child knows the phonemes that are going to be in the story. This will really help to boost their confidence. You might want to play a game with them before, and then you can have a go at reading the book. There are lots of different games that you can play. You can play bingo with the sounds. Now, don't feel that you, at the beginning of their reading journey, that you need to sit down and make them read the whole book. If you've had a play with the phonemes and then got them to read 2 pages in their book, that is absolutely fine. If they're tired after that, they've had a long day in school, that is absolutely fine. What we don't want at this stage is to put them off reading. We want it to be a really enjoyable time and something that they want to do at the end of the day, not that they feel that they have to do. Okay. So phase 2, like I've said before, altogether covers roughly 22 sounds, and on week 5 we start to introduce tricky words, which I'll talk about later on. Okay, at the end of phase 2, each term we will give you an update to where your child is at in terms of which graphemes that they recognise, and we will give you a little report to let you know which ones that the children still need to work on. Okay, then we'll move on to phase 3. Now at this time, when we're starting phase 3, we might see that some children might need a little bit of a boost with phase 2 still. They've still not quite got a few of the phase 2. So we will then maybe split the class into 2 groups to teach them phonics. Repeating phase 2 and then some moving on to phase 3 that are ready. So in phase 3, there are lots of digraph. Digraphs are two letters that make one sound. I think they're all together, there are about 11 digraphs, 6 phonemes, and 4 trigraphs in phase 3. So a digraph, like I've mentioned before, is when we put two letters together to make one sound. And here we have the digraph, sh, sh. So we'll get the children to hear the digraph, sh, and then we'll get the children to have a go, making sure they're articulating that sound correctly, and then we'll have a go at writing it down. You might want to play orally with the digraphs that are introduced. So you might want to start saying things like, if the digraph was sh, you might have ish, fish, or shell. Okay, for the children to blend those sounds together. Okay, let's have a look how we read. Again, we have our sound buttons on. We need to identify that those two letters, the sh, make one sound. So that's why there is just a line underneath. So let's press the sound buttons. Sh, op. Blend together. Sh, op. Shop. Okay. And ish. Fish. Like I've mentioned before, it's really important that they blend those sounds together and not move on to the next word. Okay. Again, we'll be using our phonic fingers to sound out that word to then write it into a phoneme frame. Now, we're going to start advancing the children now, so the expectation will be maybe to start writing captions and sentences to develop their writing skills. So they may not always rely on that phoneme frame anymore. Here we have the trigraph, ear. Again, you can play around with this, having listened to the sound, ear. You might want to put it into words like ear, here, or ear, beard, okay, or ear, fear. Then they'll have a go at saying it, making sure they're articulating it correctly, and then we'll have a go at writing it, okay. You might hear the children say quacky fingers. This is how I encourage the children to hold their pencil correctly when forming those letters. Okay, let's have a go at reading some words with the trigraph ear. Press the sound buttons. Ear, fear. Ear, clear. Okay, again, phonic fingers are used to help to sound out that word. Here in the word fear, there are only 2 sounds, so they only need 2 fingers. And it's really important to emphasise that those 3 letters need to stay together to make that one sound. Okay, here we have a phoneme frame. They might find this easier when introducing a new sound, a new phoneme. They might find it easier to use a phoneme box first. Okay, so I mentioned earlier tricky words. Tricky words are introduced in phase 2, week 5. And these consist, we call them tricky words because they can't be blended. So if I try and blend the word the, we end up with t-e. We can't blend those together. So the children just need to know the tricky words by sight. Okay, so the tricky word the, tricky word the. Say it lots of times. They might write it down lots of times. It's about seeing it lots and lots of times, and it will eventually, they will just remember the. Okay. Now, in phase 3, we start to introduce alien words. These are nonsense words, words that don't really make sense, but we're going to use them to help to strengthen their decoding skills. Okay, so here we have the word flaff, which, as we know, isn't a real word, but it has lots of those sounds in for them to be able to read. We start this journey of nonsense words in reception towards the end of phase 3, and this is carried on into year 1 when they move into phase 5 too. Okay, we might talk about syllables in a word. So clap the word out. So baboon. Okay, so we might say the word first. Baboon. Right, let's split the word. This just helps the child to be able to read the word a little bit better. Ba, u, n, boon. Put them together. Baboon. Okay. You can have a play around with your child's name or other things that you might think of to clap out the syllables. Okay. So here we have a phase 3 reading book. This is right at the beginning of phase 3, where we've not introduced those digraphs in this book. You might start off, as we've got the tricky words in there, you might want to start off by having those flashcards at the side of you to show them the tricky words that might be in the text. So let's have a look at reading this. Again, don't forget to talk about the picture. Don't forget to talk about, immerse the children in what is happening. What can you see in the picture? Where do you think they might be? What do you think they're doing? What do you think is going to happen next? All those questions, get them intrigued. You know, it's not just a book to read the phonemes. We want to engage with the book too. Okay, so let's have a look at reading this story. So we have this, ox, fox. Go back to the beginning. This fox is, this fox is a, this fox is a or this fox is a mum. Make sure that your child is understanding what they're reading. So, oh, this fox is a mum. Which fox do you think might be their mum? Okay. Tricky word. If they've forgotten, you can remind them. Tricky word she. Remember the flashcard. She has lots. She has lots of. She has lots of cubs. She has lots of cubs. So you can talk to the children. They might never have heard the word cubs before. You might talk to them about a cub being a baby fox. Okay. Then we have a capital I for, and sometimes the children might mistake the I in it for the tricky word I, which we get quite a lot at the beginning. But then they realise that there are capital letters and lowercase letters, and that we need to start our sentences with a capital letter and finish our sentence with a full stop. Okay. It is, it is fun, it is fun, it is fun. Tricky word to, it is fun to. Tricky word be, it is fun to be it is fun to be a fox. It is fun to be a fox. Cub. It is fun to be a fox cub. Would you like to be a fox cub? It looks fun to be a fox cub, doesn't it? All those questions around the story are brilliant for helping the children with their understanding. Again, understanding is a prime area in early years. Okay, so we've covered listening, understanding, reading, comprehension, and writing here. So this is a quick overview of the sounds that we and the tricky words that we teach in phase 3. Okay. Once we've completed phase 3, again at the end of every term, we do a check with the children to see what they've picked up and what we're still missing with those digraph, trigraphs. There are a lot to learn, so we will revisit them, and we will send you out, of course, to let you know where your child's at with their phonics, and hopefully you can support us with helping them to fill in those missing gaps. Phase 4 doesn't introduce any new sounds. We are building on the learning that they have been introduced to with phase 2 and phase 3, developing those words to longer words with CVCC words. So as you know, at the beginning of phase 2, we talked about just CVC words. We're extending the words this time. So words like asked vast or ramp or wimp, sometimes the children can find this a little bit more challenging because they don't always hear the last sound or the last phoneme in the word. Okay, so this is phase 4, and this starts in at the end of reception and moves into, it's kind of a warm-up for year 1 as well. Okay, so here's just a little overview of some of the terminology that you might have heard me use in this presentation. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm always willing to answer those questions, and I really hope that this video has helped you to understand phonics a little bit better. Okay, thank you.